Hello, guys and girls out there, and welcome to another day with PE Slick Podcast. I'm your host, Ranger Matt, and on Soaps Pass as well. Joining me live today is the one and only. I got a legend here. He is a legend to the soap world, especially As the World Turns. This is my first interview with the As the World Turns star. You guys know me for having got a lot of stars on, but I'm a fan of As the World Turns as well. And here he is. This is the original Craig Montgomery in the house, Mr. Scott Bryce himself. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Matt. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Oh, good. I'm glad you can hear me. I'm all right. I'm locked up here in my bedroom. My wife has got rehearsals downstairs
Okay.
with a couple of kids who, unfortunately, with COVID, they have to be outside while she's inside. So it's kind of weird, but we're doing what we got to do, right?
Right.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing okay. I remember we were talking the other day. It's ironic. I'm doing this interview, and then later on, I'm going to the dentist to have my teeth looked at. So I'm.
Oh. It's all right. Look, in life, here's the thing: teeth are the one thing that if you ignore, they will go away.
Right.
So nothing else will. So take care of your teeth.
I sure will.
Good.
How you guys holding up during this pandemic?
We're okay. Look, I mean, I have very little to complain about. We're incredibly blessed. I have a beautiful home in Connecticut. The industry's shut down, so that's a little bit scary. And looking ahead to not having health insurance as of January 1st, we'll figure that out. My wife is managing to keep teaching via Zoom, or the students are outside, so that's keeping a little revenue stream. And the biggest heartbreak is for my son, who's an elite athlete. He's a AAU shooting guard on a high-rise team sponsored by New Balance. And we were supposed to be all over touring everywhere, and that didn't happen. So that's, so if that's my big complaint in life, look, Nick Cordero died yesterday after a 3-month struggle, 41 years old, leaving behind his incredibly faithful wife who was by his side whenever she could be, and their son, and it's just, so can I complain? No, I am so blessed. We're going to be fine.
Yes, sir. There you go.
There you go.
So let's take it back a bit. Oh, by the way, I tell people who I bring on who's on the soaps, if you got any questions for me, please shoot ahead. You're welcome to.
Well, how'd you get the name Ranger then? I need to know this.
Well, this is a summer hat I wear. I used to work for a lawn company, and we wore this a lot. But this became kind of my summer hat because, I got this at the back. And people be like, "Where'd you get this hat from?" So, remember Rite Aid?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, they have a bunch of these each year, and I started wearing this like 3 years ago. And a lady who goes to my church, she started calling me Ranger Matt. So this
stuck.
Yeah, it's stuck.
Good for you. Cool. It's a good moniker.
And I don't know if he was going to ask me this or not, but I think we talked about this briefly. So I got hooked on As the World Turns like back in 2000. I was in 3rd grade at the time, which is rare. This is rare, right? A young kid.
I feel really old, Matt. Thank you so much.
It's my mom's fault though, because she was a fan of both As the World Turns and God in Light. And you know this, at that time, cable wasn't like how it is today. It was small. We didn't have many channels, and but it was something about soap operas that drew me, and I began writing, and I did some short films. One short film I did was played at the film festival at my college called Shaking Ground. That was a soap opera.
Wow.
And I did another one that was kind of my lifetime movie called A Person's Nightmare, where a guy meets a girl and she gets to know him, but he attacks her on the fence, and it's a moment where she pulls a gun on him and she's deciding that she want to kill him or not. He's like, do it. That's my other soap opera as well. So,
that sounds funny. That's really funny, Matt. That's a good comedy.
I have something that you was in, though, that at the time Hunt Block was Craig, so I didn't know you was Craig. And
yeah.
I have something right here that you was in.
What's that? Oh my God, what is that? I have to put on my glasses here. Wow.
Lethal Weapon
3. Yes, I got a phone call from the head of Warner Brothers Casting. I was working on Murphy Brown a lot in the day back then, and I got a call from Warner Brothers, head of casting department, and she said to me, Dick Donner wants to know if you're available tomorrow. I'm like, what? Yeah, he's this small part in this movie, and they haven't cast it yet, and they forgot to cast it. Can you come in tomorrow? And I'm like, yeah. So they sent me the script, and I stayed up all night, and I'm reading, trying, and my part's very, very small, but I want to really know what I'm talking about. And I got there really in the morning, and I'm in my trailer, my little trailerette, and I come out just as Dick Donner and Danny Glover and Mel Gibson are walking by, and I come out of my trailer with the script, and Dick Donner looks at me and he goes, Scotty, you didn't read that, did you? And they all start laughing. And I was like, what? And then I figured out later on, they kind of were making the movie up as they went. So the script is like barely a guide because those guys were so brilliant. First of all, the chemistry between Glover and Mel Gibson were amazing, and Dick Donner's a genius. And so they just did, so I was able to like laugh and relax. And then the woman playing my wife was actually Dick Donner's secretary. So it was, we just like threw it together, and I was there for half a day and I left. So yeah, it was kind of fun. It was a silly little part and nothing and a good time.
And I'm sure it was fun for you. I mean, I'm sure you knew the first two Lethal Weapons. I mean, Danny Glover, Mel Gibson, and then Joe Pesci.
Yeah, Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci, we're in rehearsal, and he's at the door, and his character's going, okay. Remember that? So he's like, okay, so you're going to come in here, okay? And then he goes, wait a minute, who invented this okay stuff? It's driving me crazy. Oh, wait, that was me. So he's a very, very, very funny man, and he can be one hell of a scary character. I mean, if you remember him in Goodfellas, yikes, right? I mean, incredible performance. So yeah, look, I've been so blessed and so lucky in my career. I've been acting professionally since I was 22 and managing to cobble together a remarkable career. I look at how lucky I've been, the great people I've worked with. Oh, here's a little trivia piece for you about As the World Turns, by the way. My dad was a soap star, right?
Yes.
So my father played Bill Bauer on The Guiding Light, like back in the day, and they were like 15 minutes live, and then it went to a half hour, and then eventually an hour.
Right.
And so here's the trivia. He was also in As the World Turns. How many Bryce family members have been on As the World Turns? Do you happen to know?
Let's see. Your father?
Correct.
Did you maybe have a son? Oh, okay, just two. Okay.
No, my father, myself, my wife, my mother, and my brother.
What?
So my brother Phil played Lucinda's pilot. My dad played Dr. Deming on the show. I can't remember his first name, a psychiatrist, for like a year. My wife was a buyer at Barbara's salon for a day and came in. And my my mother was Bunny back in the probably before you were watching, because it was obviously before you were born. So but it was back in Duncan McKechnie days. And with Shannon and Duncan, and then my mother played Bunny, who was this like crazy trailer lady. So 5 Bryce members have done the show, and apparently we don't hold the record. There's a family that's done 6.
My God, I had no idea. You wow, that's a trivia for me. I had no idea. I just knew your father and yourself had been on daytime. I had no idea about that.
Father, my brother, my mother, my wife, and myself.
Yeah.
And my son, thank God he's an athlete. Thank God.
Oh my goodness gracious! You in some ways, I gotta say, how much exactly are you as Craig, and how much are you as Scott? Like, what are some similarities and differences between you two? You think?
Well, the thing about I was so again blessed and lucky to play that part. I mean, what an incredible role that it became. When it started, it was kind of weird. I flew in from like the Caribbean, and I had some secret formula for perfume I stole from the Russians. I mean, it was all really kind of nutty. And then they brought me in to Mary Ellis Bunham, the executive producer at the time, brought me into her office and said, "We really like you. We're going to go in a very, very different direction, but we're going to make you a bad guy. Are you are you willing to do that? And I was like, bring it on. That sounds like a blast. And so that was when Craig started to become very evil. And the secret for me about playing him was a lesson I got from my dad. And I said, look, they're going to make this guy a real villain. How do I play villain without doing, the twirling of the mustache?
Right.
And my father said, villains don't know they're villains. You don't know you're a villain. You don't know you're a bad guy.
Right.
And then he said something that really stuck with me. He said, no human being does anything wrong. They convince themselves that they're right first. And I thought, wow. So suddenly the drive for Craig was about love and acceptance in his family, but at all costs with nothing but mayhem. And so no matter what he did, he created chaos and horror.
Right.
And that worked. And so people, they'd say, there's characters you love to hate. And for me, I was getting responses, God, I hate to love you. You're so awful and you're so terrible. Why do I like you? And that's, I think, from the secret that I got from my dad, which is don't play the bad guy. And then when I was about to leave the show, because I got kind of tired of being a bad guy, then Doug Marland, the incredible writer, those were the heyday years of the soap. The man was a genius for soap opera storytelling. And he brought me to his house for dinner and he said, if you stay, I will turn you into a hero, and I guarantee you'll get a Best Actor nomination. Anyway, I poo-pooed the Best Actor nomination because who can do that? But I was like, okay, well, let's see what happens. And that created the Craig Sierra storyline, which redeemed Craig into a good guy. And guess what? Nominated for Best Actor 2 years in a row.
Right.
So thank you, Doug Merland, and thank you, As the World Turns. And then, that allowed me to take off and then work elsewhere. What is that? Oh, yeah, there you go. That's the cover. Me and Finn. Yeah. Craig and Sierra. And then I got lucky in primetime because when I left the show, again, another blessing from both Procter & Gamble and As the World Turns and CBS, I could practically come and go at will. I mean, I would come for a year and go, I got to get out of here, and they let me go. And then I'd go to LA and work a little bit. And how I got my first primetime job was instantaneous. I had no audition. I got a call from my agent about 4 weeks after I did my last episode on As the World Turns, saying you're going to Los Angeles. Now, I didn't put it together at the time because 4 weeks after we shot the last episode was when it aired. So the next thing I know, I'm on an airplane. I'm out to the Mondrian Hotel. They're giving me a Porsche in the basement. And I go over to Facts of Life where I meet everybody and they're thrilled to have me there. And I'm like, how did this happen? Turns out all the girls on Facts of Life were fans of As the World Turns. They watched it during their lunch break.
Wow.
George Clooney had just left the show. And so when Nancy McKeon saw that I had left, Nancy said, bring me Scott Bryce. And so next thing I know, I'm on a plane. Next thing I know, we're getting married on the show. It's a TV Guide event. And my primetime career was begun. And I'm, to this day, incredibly grateful for that because in those days, the leap from daytime to primetime was a major hurdle. And so that was a real gift to me. I started my primetime career, and then I got lucky in movies as well. I got John Abnett on Up Close and Personal, who fought like the Dickens to get me on the cast. And the studio at those days, they didn't trust TV people. It was like film and TV are two different things. Those rules are all gone. Everything's multi-platform. But at the time, it was really tough. So I was released from the film 5 times. And then I was flown out for a screen test and a table read with the cast. And when I arrived, I didn't have the part yet. Everybody else did. So John Abnett, the director, had me come in early. And I put my stuff down on this, big, gigantic square table. The whole cast and the studios are going to be around, department heads for the first reading. And Michelle Pfeiffer comes in. She puts her stuff down right next to mine. And I'm like, okay, well, this is awkward. So let me go get my stuff. And so I slide it down a few chairs because I don't belong up here with the, hobnobs.
Right.
And then Redford comes in, and Robert Redford walks in and says hi to John Abnett. And then he puts his stuff down, and I look back at the table, and my stuff is back next to Michelle's, and Robert Redford's going on the other side of me. So I'm stuck now between Michelle Pfeiffer and Robert Redford. This is wrong, right? So I run over to grab my stuff, and John Abnett's hand comes down on my bag, and he says, you sit where I tell you. And I went, whoa. And I realized he was putting me right between Michelle Pfeiffer and Robert Redford for the table read so that the studios would see me so that they'd give me the part.
Wow.
So that was his genius. And I wound up getting the part. I was so nervous that night. I had to go do a screen test. And I go in and there was this fairly older makeup artist. She was probably in her 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And she's doing my makeup. And it was like 9 o'clock at night at that point. I had to go in for the screen test right afterwards. And the part was mine, but I didn't know it.
Right.
And I'm so nervous. And this woman starts doing my eyeliner. She goes, do you want eyeliner underneath? And I said, well, I'm a news anchor, so probably make my eyes pop. So she starts on one eye. And this eye, I have an involuntary twitch. So if you're doing eyeliner, I twitch. And I can't help it. It's not a big deal. It doesn't hurt. It's just a little tick. So
right.
She's doing that, and I twitched, and she stopped, and she looked at me. And then she looked over at the call sheet. She grabbed the call sheet. She goes, Bryce. And then she looked back at me, and she goes, my God, I did your father's makeup at Guiding Light for about 18 years, and he had the same twitch. And at that moment, my shoulders dropped. I totally relaxed, and I went, oh, my God, I'm going to get this part. And then I did. And then a great Michelle Pfeiffer story for you, a real quick one, and finish this one up, and then we can put the movie side. But I came in for the first day of rehearsal. Again, I'm a TV guy that's not really known in film at all. I got a call from the fourth AD the night before. You're going to go park over at the Sony lot, and then you're going to take a little shuttle bus with the employees, and you'll come through security, and we got you with a little honey wagon, which is a tiny, tiny, tiny little dressing room. And I'm fine. I don't care. I'm working with Redford and Pfeiffer. So I do all that stuff, and I get to the table read, and we come in and sit down. We start talking, and the table read the first day rehearsal was John Abnett, the director, Robert Redford, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Scott Bryce. Okay, I'm in like ecstatic heaven. I'm in bliss.
Right.
We start rehearsal, and the PAs bring in coffee, and they put coffee down for Michelle Pfeiffer, coffee down for Robert Redford, a coffee down for John Abnett, and they start to turn and walk away.
Right.
And Michelle Pfeiffer says, "Excuse me." And she was obviously a little sharp in her voice, and so everybody turns, what? And she says, I believe you forgot coffee for my co-star. And then Redford goes, Scott, why don't you take mine? I was like, no, Bob, I'm fine. Now panic. And the PA's come to me, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? I said, just black, no sugar would be great. Do you want anything else? No, I'm fine. And as they're starting to leave, Michelle Pfeiffer calls out the name, I can't remember his name, and he says, never do that again.
Wow. And
it was a quick little moment. They walk away. We finish rehearsal. So about 3 p.m, we're coming towards the end of rehearsal. The first AD now, I used to talk to the fourth AD. Now the first comes over to me, and he says, I need your car keys and that parking ticket. I need the car. And I'm like, what? And I reach in my pocket. I give him, go away, because we're in rehearsal. And I'm with Redford and Pfeiffer. So, we finish rehearsal. We're all done. We start to sign out. Michelle goes first. She signs out and leaves. Robert Redford signs out and leaves. Now it's me. I go to sign out, and the first AD says, Mr. Bryce, will you be requiring limousine service, or will you be driving your car? And I look out, and my car is now parked in front of a Star trailer, which is right next to Michelle Pfeiffer's with my name on the door.
Wow.
All because Michelle Pfeiffer said, I think you forgot coffee for my co-star. So that taught me a great deal about power and the good use of power and how you can elevate people, and I will be eternally grateful to her for that. Changed everything.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for that moment to happen, and then next thing you know, you got your name on the trailer, and it's like, wow. I mean, who knew?
Yeah, it was mind-boggling. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Let's take it back a bit though for you. Where are you from, and what kind of influence did you have growing up? Like, what was your hobbies growing up?
I was born in New York City, and then we moved to Westchester County when I was like in probably first grade. And then we moved to Westport, Connecticut when I went into fourth grade. I have 2 older brothers. Right. My parents were both actors. They're both gone. My dad was a soap star. My mom was a producer, casting director, all sorts of stuff. Mm-hmm. My grandparents were Whitey Main, was my maternal grandfather, and he was a booking agent for the Keith Albee vaudeville circuit, and he managed Mae West and the Marx Brothers, among many other stuff. My grandmother worked for Selznick Select Pictures, which was the silent movies back in the day.
Right.
And when they moved to California, they asked her to come. And she went home to my grandfather and said, the movies, we're moving to LA. What do you think? And my grandfather said, this movie talking picture thing, it's just a flash in the pan. Vaudeville will never die. So they wound up in real estate because vaudeville collapsed.
Right.
My father was probably the second born here from Scottish immigrants. My grandfather on my father's side was a coal miner.
Mm-hmm.
They had 12 children, 11 lived, not even Catholic. Imagine that. And then we came over here. They were in Pennsylvania. My father went off to the war, World War II, fought in Europe, came back and started acting. He thought he wanted to start acting, and he went to University of Denver, graduated, came to New York, and auditioned for my mother, who had just founded a new theater called the Greenwich Mews Playhouse, where she was doing Antigone. She hired him for Creon, and they were married within a year. And so that's how that happened.
Right.
And then I'm the youngest of three. My eldest brother is a retired minister. And as my mother would call him, he was the white sheep of the family. And she would say, yeah, but you're an actor. You just write your own stuff and you only work on Sundays. And then my brother Phil was an actor turned lawyer, turned actor, turned back to law again. And now he's a division head for an international law firm.
Wow.
And then my son, please God, don't be an actor. It's too hard. It's too hard a career. But he has no interest at the moment. So maybe my wife and I, who's also an actress, we have our fingers crossed that, athletics or podiatrist, I don't care. But because our business is really, really hard and getting harder.
Yeah. I mean, who knew though that, years later you'd be playing Craig Montgomery and being on Murphy Brown and Michelle Pfeiffer, all these roles that took off for you over the years. I mean, who knew? And you still acting.
Yeah, I am, and I'm very lucky. And the Dick Wolf people keep me employed of late. The last several years, it's been really great. I've done FBI and Law and Order SVU, and I had an amazing role on Chicago PD playing a congressman, and that was astonishing part and fun. I remember when I got cast in soap operas, I was chasing soap operas. I was sort of on the radar, I think mostly because of my dad. He was a soap star, so people would see me. And so I actually auditioned for the part of Josh on Guiding Light that Robert Newman played. And I remember meeting Robert Newman that day. And he got the part and I did not. And as he should. It's his role. I mean, really. He did an amazing part. So it's one of those things, thank God he got it, right? So about 3-4 months later, I got called in for this new part. It's going to be on As the World Turns. Betty Ray, God bless her, God rest her soul, was the casting director. Amazing, amazing woman. I went into audition for her. I'd been up like bartending the night before till 5:30 in the morning, cleaning up the restaurant. I looked like garbage. And I was sort of in a cranky mood, and I was like, 22 years old and knew everything, kind of arrogant little punk. And I go into to read the scene. Right, like Greg. So I'm going in to read the scene, and Betty Ray is looking at the television. She's watching the shoot on the floor from Guiding Light. She's not even looking at me. She's just doing the dialogue. And about halfway through, I almost stopped. I almost was like, well, obviously this is pointless. And in my 22-year-old arrogant narcissistic self was going to storm out of the room and prove it to her. But a little voice inside of me had me shut up and just finish the scene. So I did. And as soon as the scene was over, Betty didn't even look at me. She goes, your screen test for Craig Montgomery will be next Wednesday. Go home. You look like hell. And she went back to the TV. And I thought, if I had allowed my ego to stop me, my career would not have happened.
Right.
And because I shut up and did my job, I got the greatest break of my life with an incredible part that Craig, what did Craig not do? Incredible role. And so I'm grateful to this day. And it's a lesson out there to all you younger actors. Shut up and do your job. You'll be amazed what happens.
Right. I gotta say, for me, I never done no acting. I mean, I did like one play back when I was in 3rd grade when I started watching the show, and I liked it, but because I guess my attention spasm was a little off, I had some problems pronouncing some words, and I kind of froze in the middle of my show. but some others helped me, and I was able to get through it. But watching soap operas, I was like, come on, you guys had to have, improv something, because to memorize 60 pages of dialogue a day, that has to be a lot for your brain to,
There's remarkably little improv, remarkably little. Because there can't be, because the TD and the director have set up the script to alternate the shots. So remember, in most movies, you shoot everybody's scene and you edit it together. In soap operas, you're cutting it live, so you're switching cameras. So you have to stay on script because they got to know when to switch. Now, there's a couple of exceptions to that rule. One would be Elizabeth Hubbard, because Elizabeth, who, first of all, is probably the greatest actress I've ever worked with. She's an astonishing talent. And she would come in and you'd never quite know what it was she was going to say until it got down to the cue line, and then the cue line would always be the same. So, and the cue line meaning the one that would send it back to me or send a camera cut. So, and her rewrites were hilarious and great, but that was really rare. Otherwise, people really stick to the script. There's no cue cards, so you're expected to memorize, and it's tough. And and then we repeat ourselves so much. Like, I remember, here's a funny thing, when Ronald Reagan, the assassination attempt happened on Ronald Reagan, Secretary Brady, his press secretary, was injured horribly with a head wound, and it wound up taking out his power of speech. He could never walk again. And when he was in rehab, he watched As the World Turns to help him learn how to speak. He became a fan of the show, and he actually asked to come visit the studio, and he came. And Secretary Brady and his wife, they were both gracious and wonderful. And I looked at him and I was asking how he got involved with the show. He goes, "You helped me to speak again." And I was like, wow, why As the World Turns? Why soap operas? He said, because you repeat yourself over and over. I thought, that's so funny. Then I started to hear from immigrants who learned the language from soap operas, because it's the same scene. As my father was once asked, "What's the secret of soap opera?" And he said, "Well, the bullet leaves the gun on Monday, and then it travels across the room Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then it's hit somebody Friday, but you don't know who until the following Monday." And that's now at the same time, right? But at the same time, that bullet traveling, my little son grows up 5 years old and comes down a lawyer. So everything is, time is irrelevant in soap opera.
Right. That's
You've broken up a little bit. You broke up a little bit.
I got a clip for you, Scott. It's a scene between you. Whoop. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I got a scene for you. It's a clip between you and Elizabeth Hubbard, who was Lucinda. This is a scene you two had when you came back to the show in 2007. This is one of my favorite scenes between you guys. Y'all had a little debate going on here.
My assistant have my security team throw you out of your bike. Oh, really? Not according to my side.
And I saw that thing. I said, my heavens. Me? Who is this guy that thinks he can say me all over other people's property?
That's it, really? Okay, sorry. Drew, get security for me, please.
Wait a minute. If you're calling security, let's give him something to talk about. Okay?
You guys.
He was hilarious. Now, and to give you a little moment about that's the part where she says me, who's me, that wasn't in the script. She just went over and did that. And it was so funny. It just came into her mind, and you just go with Elizabeth. She's that good,
Yeah, but if you think about it, though, Montgomery Enterprises, me. I remember when that first aired, I was like, yeah, me.
Well, I had a hard time when I came back the last time because so much had changed. I played Craig off and on, and as I said, I could come and go. And then I got a series called Popular, which was Ryan Murphy's first show, which was supposed to be a musical, and Warner Brothers panicked. Too bad. They should have listened to Ryan Murphy. But we had a couple of seasons, and when we got renewed for the second season, that was when
Right.
CBS and This World Turns recast Craig. They were like, okay, he's not coming back. So that was when Hunt Block got it, and Hunt Block made it his own. It's a very, it's like, who's the better James Bond? It's like everybody plays it a little bit differently.
Right.
And so he left an indelible mark on the way he was playing it, which was far more evil and villainous than I had been. So when I came back on the show, they called me up and I had to go meet with Chris Goutman. And anyway, I agreed to come on the show, which is very strange to begin with. And then I'm hearing everything that Craig had become, including a murderer. And that was a huge leap for me to figure out how to play that. And then we had a very tough storyline, frankly, with the quad, with the four people. And I'm like, what is Meg? And why am I married to Meg? And why do I care? And why is she marrying me? And how can I sign over a multinational corporations with less signatures than it takes to rent a car? And how come? And so much didn't make sense. But once we had the baby, once we had family, that was the goal. Then all the old Craig kicked in, because that's what he wants more than anything in the world. So I played that out until they let me go. And Chris Goutman let me go. It was a big shock to cast, crew, and staff alike. People, they try to talk him out of it. To this day, I have no idea why. It doesn't matter. But the ratings, coming back on the show and seeing the challenges that it was under, the financial pressure that it was under, rehearsals were like practically eliminated for time. And it got really hard to be good at the end. And so, I praised the show, and I think about people like Julianne Moore, who came back to honor it. I really respect that. But it was tough at the end because it wasn't what the show had been.
Yeah, you can comment on this if you want. Because when you came back to the show after Hunt Block, and then another actor named Jeff Meek, who was on Search for Tomorrow, he was playing Craig. And when you came back, to me, it felt like, okay, they bring in the original Craig back, that could boost ratings, because they had brought some other people back as well. Larry McDormand, Ed Fry, who played him, he came back briefly as well. And so when you was like go the following year, it was like, wow, like you had just came back to the show, and I thought maybe you was going to stay on maybe 3 years or something. But that was a shocker, and not to dumb down John Lindstrom, because I knew him from General Hospital in Port Charles. He played Craig in the last years. But when you came back, I felt that might have helped save the show or do something for the show in a big way.
The ratings did go up. I'm not solely responsible for that in any way, but the ratings did go up significantly from like 7 to 3, almost the number 2 show. So I'm proud of that. I think that when Hunt Block left the show, as I understand it, it was very clear he was never, ever coming back. And I think that Chris Goutman they brought in Jeff Meek. For whatever reason, it didn't work. He's a very good actor. It just, miscast. Who knows? They let him go. I never saw any of the show that he did, so I can't judge the actor. I hear he's very good. Then they brought me in, and I think they wanted me to be Hunt. And that was what it started to become. I was like, oh, you want me to play the character that Hunt Block changed Craig into? Well, that's not me. And I can't mimic Hunt Block. And I think that frustrated Chris, and then he let me go. And then they brought in John Lindstrom, who made his own invention of what Craig was. But again, it was a far more evil and dark character than I had ever played.
Right. Now I know at this point you've been off the show, but what was your reaction when you heard it was canceled in 2010? This was like a year after Guiding Light was canceled.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. I mean, back in the day, and the first several times I did the show, Procter & Gamble was the sponsor and actually the owner of the show. And they would always, like every week, we would see a representative from Procter & Gamble come by. And there'd be an executive coming in, seeing the studio, checking on everybody. And then once every few months, the head of that division from Procter & Gamble would fly in from Cincinnati and see everybody and meet with the stars and talk. And in the 10 months that I was back on that show, I never saw anybody. So I realized Procter and Gamble had sort of already kind of let it go. And they had said, if you want to keep it on the air with budget cuts, do whatever you can. We'll stick it out as long as we can. But when Guiding Light moved to that house in, what was that, Peacock, New Jersey or something, or wherever it was. And I'm watching them shoot in the house, and I'm like, this is now gotten really, this is like, first year college film study course. I feel like I'm watching a student film, and that was too bad. And then the ratings just kept plummeting. And eventually, when I left the show back in the 90s, they were panicking because our audience had dropped to 18 million. Think about that. 18 million was panic that there weren't enough people watching.
Yeah.
Now, you do a primetime show with 10 million people watch, everybody's happy. And by the time As the World Turns was done, it was like there were like less than 1 million people watching the show. You can't pay 200 people a salary and do that. It's not, you can't do it. So it became economically impossible to do them. Even though if you think about it, soap operas are the first binge show, aren't they? Every day, right? Another episode, another episode, another episode. It's amazing. Like, wow.
Man, this might sound random, but what kind of music do you like?
I like all kinds of music, really. But now I'm getting older, so I find I'm like the music.
You're still young.
Oh, I look young. It's all done with hair color. But I find that when my son listens to my music, he like looks at me weird, and I have to laugh because it's like when I was in the car with my parents and they were listening to Frank Sinatra. And so now I'm realizing that U2, Bono to me is Frank Sinatra to my son, It's like this, we catch up to ourselves. It's so weird. But he's turning me on to different music. And so I'm listening to that. It's a little bit more, he's more into rap than I am. I get a little, I'm too old. I have a headache. But I love music. I think music is like God's language. It changes people.
Right. Absolutely.
It's kind of a cool thing. And my wife is a singer, a Broadway singer, and so I listen to it all the time. I hear it all the time. So I love music. I love classical music. I love country music. I love Yes. I love Led Zeppelin. I love Heart. There's so many. And of course, as I'm speaking, these names are coming from, so many decades ago. It's like, I love Perry Como, but that's my genre, my stuff. And I love it.
Listen, that's me too. I'm a big star of music from the 80s and 90s. I'm a big Doobie Brothers and Hall & Oates fan. I love them. My mom is a huge Zeppelin fan. Yeah.
So many. Now we're in an interesting time. Our entire world is changing. In the last 3 months, our entire planet has changed in a most dramatic yet unseen way that actually I'm very hopeful about. I'm more filled with hope now than I have been in a long time, even in the middle of all this crap. And it'll be very interesting to see how music changes and how our industry, how the acting world changes. I mean, how do you do a love scene now in the age of COVID?
Right.
It's like really tough. And I heard a rumor, I don't know if it's true or not for sure, but I heard that Bold and the Beautiful is going to be using blow-up dolls for the bed scenes.
I don't know how in the world that's going.
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't keep a straight face in that. There's no way I could get through it. So something would pop and it wouldn't be the doll. It would be my career. So God bless him to try to figure it out, But again, I'm also
you need your own show.
Yeah. Well, I get solace from history because I think, what followed the 1917, 18, 19 pandemic that was just like what we're going through now. It was even worse. 600,000 people in Manhattan died in a year and a half. I mean, it's unbelievable. And So you think about those numbers, and then you look at what people think, there's a depression coming, it'll be horrible. And I think, well, what followed the last pandemic, in which everybody was wearing masks until they weren't, then everybody got sick again, so they put the masks back on, then they finally beat it back, Broadway was closed, moved, everything shut down, same stuff. What followed that was the Roaring 20s, where the economy exploded in a great way. You think about how society changed, both in terms of social structure, in terms of people dancing, sexual revolution began, sort of women's awareness kind of began, racial awareness started in many ways. You can track it back to that time period where you go, wait a minute, people are starting to question this stuff. Why are people coming in separate doors? Why is there segregation in the South and not in the North? All that stuff started. And then people got greedy. So at the end of the 20s, they're inventing companies to make money, and it's a disaster. And then followed the Great Depression from greed.
Right.
We go through these cycles, and what's sad is we don't have to if we would learn from history, but we never do. So I try to get solace from history going, okay, we've been here before. We survived it. We got through this. We'll get through this, but we need to come together as a country and a world to get through our stuff, because we got big problems. I mean, once COVID's taken care of, we still got big problems. We got a climate disaster in front of us. We've got food. We've got, racial division we need to heal. So but I feel like it's all starting. I feel like there's an awakening that I've never seen before.
See, this is why if you ever decide to be a preacher man or a motivational speaker, I think people, you got it. You got it. You know how to really voice what you see.
Thanks, man. My eldest brother was a preacher, so I'll give that to him. But we'll see what
happens. One thing. Well, I saw your interview on the Locker Room. It must have been fun reuniting with Hillary Smith and Tom Hughes, Greg Marks.
Yeah, it had been a long time.
With Hillary.
I worked with Hillary on, she was my sister on the show, and then we did a couple of other shows together in prime time. And then she just recently directed me in the web series Beacon Hill for season 2, where I play a senator, kind of a weird, dark senator guy. And so that was fun. And then I hadn't seen Greg Marks, I think, in 15 years or something like that, And so that was fun to just see him and reunite. And again, that connection that I have. My grandfather worked with Greg's grandfather back in the days of vaudeville, which is just mind-boggling to me. And now, here we are 2 generations later in an interview show. It's amazing.
Yeah. So what was it? I mean, because like I said, you worked with Hillary, and then when you came back to the show both times, you worked with Ellen Dolan, who had took over as Margaret. What was it like working with Ellen?
Oh, I love Ellen. Ellen's fantastic. I mean, how many sisters have I had? So I started with Margaret Colin. It was Margaret Colin and Justin Dees at the time of Margaret. And then Margaret and I worked together later on a primetime show. I can't remember the heck the name of it was. Anyway, each one of my relationships with these women were different. Each one of the actresses playing the part were fantastic. Ellen is so good, and I felt like even on the first day we worked together, that we had a history. It's funny when there's some people you meet in life and you've never met them before and everything's new. And there's other times you meet somebody and almost immediately you know who they are. And there's as if you've already had a history. And I felt that way with Ellen. And because of that, we had a comfortable history together, So I loved working with her. I loved it. It's like I had, a bunch of different sisters and they were all named Margot. That's every relationship's different. Excuse me 1 second, Matt. Yes. I'm sorry. I have to go about. I'm in the middle of an interview right now, so can I talk to you a little bit? That was my son coming to my door, complaining because I wanted to take him on a boat tomorrow and he doesn't want to go. Oh, kids.
I don't have any yet, so I haven't experienced that yet.
Well, you're 5 years old now, so it's going to be a while.
The show. Oh my gosh. Craig, shame on you. I'm telling Margot. When you came back
What?
When you came back to the show, they didn't really. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit. Yeah. Do you hear me?
Okay, I have a lot of internet problems where I'm at. Yes,
okay.
I can hear you.
Okay.
When you came back to the show, they didn't talk about it a lot, but you worked a lot with Marie Wilson, who was the new Meg, and Roger Hogwarts, who was the new Paul Ryan. Talk about working with them.
Well, that was the hardest part, was because we called it, the fans called it the quad from hell. That's what they called us. It was a very tough storyline to play. The quad from hell. We had Katie McLean, Roger, Marie, and me. In a story, they brought me back, and I thought, why? I had like 2 scenes with Lucinda. I had like maybe 2 scenes with Ellen Dolan. I had nothing with Terry, who played my kid sister. Right? It's like, why am I here?
Right.
And then they brought me back, and you're missing all that opportunity of all that history. And then I get thrown in with Marie, and I'm like, why? Because this is the only Snyder girl I haven't been to bed with? What? I mean, I've slept with all of her sisters. What? Why? And maybe her mother. I don't know. So, what? And the story made no sense. And then I'm obsessed with this woman for no reason, who's in love with this other guy, who I hate. And then comes the death, where it looked like I was going to murder him. And then I wasn't. I was actually going to rescue him. And then he dies. And then she stays with me? Why would she stay with me? I'm a monster. Right. And then so Marie and I would struggle with this, trying to figure it out. And we thought, maybe what we can become is like, everybody thinks we're evil, but we're doing good things for people as we're hiding up in our vampire, whatever that my mansion was. The Bat Cave, and I'm like, what are we doing? And so it became very tough until came the baby stuff. When she was pregnant, I knew she was pregnant with his baby, and I almost poisoned the baby. And I was going to give her that drug that made her miscarry. And then at the end of it, I didn't, and I knock it out of her hand, and I'm holding her, I'm telling her I love her, and the audience response, what the producers expected was that the audience would really hate me now. I almost killed the baby. What wound up happening was a backlash of the reversal. People were like going, he almost killed a baby, and yet I'm crying for him. Why? I'm rooting for Craig. Why? And again, it goes back to that, don't play the villain. You're not a villain. You don't know you're a villain. You don't know you're bad. And then he's an interesting human character. And once that moment happened, I thought, okay, we can make this story work now. I could see him being committed to her regardless. He's after family. It makes sense. Then comes our Christmas break, and I'm in Florida, and it's between Christmas and my birthday, and I get a phone call from the executive producer who fired me on the phone.
Yeah.
And I just thought,
shame.
That's so disrespectful, and that wasn't necessary. And why are you such a coward? Firing me on the phone when I'm in Florida because you don't want to see me in your office? It just felt nasty. And so I finished up the show, and in many ways I wished I hadn't come back, because my memories of the show were so great, and it was such a great time in the earlier days, and it was so hard at the end. So I respect and love everybody I worked with, but I didn't respect the show at the end at all. And so when it got canceled, it's sad. And, look, the fact that CBS didn't make a big deal out of Guiding Lights, that show, how many years are you on the air? And if I had been Les Moonves at the time, who was in charge of CBS, and I knew Guiding Light was going to be canceled, I would have made it a primetime show that last episode. And I would have had a 1 hour before it
Right.
talking about its history, how it started on radio. Soap operas were what paid the networks, you know what I mean? And they could have celebrated that and elevated it. And instead, they just die these quiet deaths over in the corner. And I think that's such a shame, man. And it's a disrespect to the audience. It's a disrespect, particularly to fans, man. Fans remember every detail. So when the producers start changing the plot or changing history to adhere to the new plot, I'm like looking at them going, they're not going to be fooled. They know more about me than I know about me. Fans remember episodes I don't remember. And it was very disrespectful to the fans, thinking they'll just go with this. It doesn't matter. It's a new story. And it really backfired, and we lost all the old fans left. And that was too bad. So I have a bittersweet feeling about it. I'm very grateful for the days. I'm grateful for the crew members. You know, Pat Finn is probably gone, a cameraman that would work with my dad back in the day. Arthur Murphy, who was our boom operator. I'm going to tell it's a borderline off color, but Kim Ulrich, who played Diana McCall. First of all, she's an extraordinary woman. Married to Robert Ulrich, who's Ulrich Dawson Casting in Los Angeles, and I'm telling you, they're responsible for half my career. And when she came on the show, Craig was impotent because he tried to blow up Steve's truck with him in it, and he wound up having to rescue his sister out of it, or Betsy. And then I had to get microsurgeries, all this stuff. So Craig had been such a bad guy. This is part of the beginning of redeeming him into a good guy. And so they bring in Diana McCall, and it's going to be Craig's mistress, meaning it's going to be Craig's cure for his impotence. So young Kim Ulrich then came to the show. This is back in the 80s, I guess. We were over on the east side. And it was July, and she walked onto the set. She was in a summer dress. And Kim Ulrich, to this day, is a just freak of nature, stunningly beautiful, like jaw-dropping. And back then, equally just the younger version of it. And she walks on the set, and a soap opera set's lit up in front, and it's black where the cameras are. And she walks onto the set in this summer dress, and you couldn't see anything. It's not that she was nude, but there was a real clear outline of her incredibly athletic, gorgeous self. Everybody falls silent, and we're all staring at her. And then Arthur Murphy, this older guy up on the boom, leans over to me, goes, "Scotty, is that your cure?" And I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "That could cure San Francisco." So it was that kind of humor that we would have with these guys. And, I remember one time, Arthur, at the same time, I got into a fight with the producer because they wanted me to say something about pregnant women are not attractive. And I was fighting as the actor part of me was going, Craig might say that, but I don't think we should be saying that to our audience. We have a lot of pregnant women and people with just babies, and why are we saying that? And I don't think I should say it. Why am I saying it? Give me a good reason of why I'm saying this. And Arthur's on the boom, and he's cleaning his nails. He goes, "Money, vacation, girls, your mortgage. It's endless reasons to say it, Scotty." And so that would save, like, all right. So then you just say the line. So there was great wisdom from so many unexpected corners that I learned from there, and both as an actor and as a person. So I'm insanely grateful. I try to remember the good days and put those bad days when I came back. It was a different show. It's not the same. It had the same title, but it was a different show, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the show had changed quite a bit. I mean, one thing about As the World Turns is, and you know this too, you guys changed characters a lot. Like, people came and went all the time. It wasn't really a show where people stayed on for a long period of time. I mean, some people stayed, of course. Y'all changed characters a lot, and then toward the end when you came back, like I said earlier, and like I said earlier, I felt like when they brought you back in the last year time on the show that you would be around longer because we had the original Craig back.
I signed a 3-year
he was let go, and
it was just, I think they wanted Chris Galvin wanted Hunt Block, and I'm not Hunt Block. And eventually he was like, okay, get rid of him. And they brought in John Lindstrom, who isn't on block either. And John was smart enough to just make the part his and play his Craig Montgomery, you know? So I created the role.
Right.
I'm proud of it. I developed the role. I'm proud of it. And many other people have played it. And that's, you know, I'm very lucky. I had a great time.
You also did a stunt on One Life to Live. You played Dr. Crosby. That's where I first saw you. You was working with Michael Easton.
Yeah, and the executive producer wanted to write me into that show and make me a contract, and the network wouldn't do it because of my age. They couldn't say that, but they didn't want to hire an older person.
What?
Yeah, it's the truth.
Wow.
And so, you know, that was it. And I was like, okay, then you know, let me go. But I had a fun time on that show. Michael Easton's a great guy. That was a really good story in the beginning with me as the psychiatrist. And, you know, I had fun. Everybody's, again, wonderful. Soap operas are very unique because they have, you know, you do a primetime show, you might not see half the cast. You do a movie and then you go to the premiere and you go, oh, I didn't know Jack was in this, you know, because, you know. And then, but in daytime, because it's a new show every single day, 5 days a week, every company of actors forms a family, but there's something very specific and long-term about soap opera that it really is your family. You spend more time with your fake family than you do with your real family, especially back in the day, we were doing 15, 16, 17-hour days. So it's a certain reality that doesn't exist other places. I'm glad I had the experience.
Yeah, you've had a blast on here. I got a photo of you with Miss Meg Ryan when y'all was getting married.
Oh yeah,
that picture.
Yeah,
and this one here, you three Buccaneers.
Who's that? Is that with? Oh yeah, that's Oh
Craig
yeah. David McCallum, who was he was Ilya Kuryakin on Man from U.N.C.L.E. when I was a kid. So he was like one of my heroes growing up. And so when I got to work with him, I was very excited. Yeah, he's a cool guy.
And I gotta ask, you was with, this is you and Murphy Brown. You was with the Temptations, man. What was that like?
They were. They came in and sung at your wedding. Yeah, it was awesome. That was an amazing wedding. Now, also, Matt, keep in mind, how many times have I been married on television, right? So I got married to Betsy was the first one. I got married to Betsy. I got married to then I got married to Nancy McKeon on The Facts of Life. Then I married Annabelle Gurwitch in a movie called TV Dad. Then I got married to Sierra. Then I got married to I was married to Marie Wilson. That's 5. I almost got married on Popular to Lisa Dar, but the marriage got canceled. So that's like, she'd call it 5 weddings and an almost. That would be the title of that. And someday I want to put all my wedding photos up on one line, you know, so I can just look. Because in real life, I've only been married once. But yeah, 5. And the Temptations were amazing. That was so cool. That was really cool.
Yeah, they're really one of my favorite groups that I know of, and Otis Williams being the oldest living Temptation that's still around, because you had Ali Woodside, Melvin Franklin, who has passed away since then, and Otis, you know, it's the Temptations. They did the movie and all that. Yeah,
it's history, man. Rock and roll history. Yeah, it was very
Let me see.
cool.
I know, right? Now, when you gonna release your singing album?
When am I gonna release my what?
Your singing album.
What was my first album? The Wedding with
Rock
Scott
and Roll
Bryce.
Scott Bryce.
No, I love that shot. I love that photograph. It's a great photograph.
Oh man.
You're breaking up a little bit, Matt.
Yeah. Talk about Tom. Hold on one second. Hold on, let me do this. Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Okay, like that. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Talk about Tom Wesley on Beacon Hill. Is he like another Craig, or is like maybe a different kind of villain on
A little
Beacon
bit different. He's a Republican senator, very right wing, and his daughter is gay. She's out about it, and she's very liberal, and she's a congresswoman, and it's causing some strife in the family. And then they are trying to get her to move into a senatorial position in the same state.
Mm-hmm.
So we would be senators from the same state on opposite sides of the political aisle who are father and daughter. So needless to say, the word most probably would be awkward.
Wow.
And fraught with drama. And yeah, I had a good time. It was a good part. So I had a fun time. And you should look at it.
I've seen the first episode of Beacon Hill.
The first season, yeah. And this is better, I think. It's better. It's better writing. Same writing team, but they just have more experience. That makes sense. So yeah, it was a fun show. I had a good time. Hillary called me and said, "Will you do this?" And how do you say no to your sister? Right? You don't. So you show up. So that's how we are with each other. We're family. For real. It's funny.
Right.
And I'm still in touch with people like, Brian Bloom, who played Dusty Donovan. He and I are still really good friends. He was 12 years old in my dressing room. Now he's 50. Tamara Tooney is like my sister. We've been housemates together for several years in California. We're still close friends. She's coming up to visit in just a couple of weeks to spend a couple of nights. These are relationships that last, and
right.
So that, and again, it's family, and I don't think that exists anywhere else.
No.
That was my wife going by, if anybody saw her anyway.
Hey there. Let me see here. Talking with you, I had another question. Now I forgot. It's your fault. I'm blaming you.
I'm sorry. I do that.
But
I distract people. It's actually
I have another clip here. Scott Bryce for president of the United States.
Oh my God! No, thank you. Oh my God! No, I want to go. I want to go to the guy who doesn't want to do it. That's the guy I'll believe. Or woman.
Right.
All right. What's your question?
One scene with you here. You was very, very emotional here. Yeah, I was saying.
You're frozen,
man. With you.
You're frozen. You're coming in and out. Very like your
Sierra. Here it is. You believe Sierra was dead or something like that, and you was reading the letter, and then this song came on. It was like a little montage of
yeah, suddenly in the ocean, suddenly yeah, that was our theme song. Yeah, I'm on the airplane thinking she's dead, right? You're frozen again, Matt.
Yeah. And, yeah.
I think we're having some technical difficulties.
Craig, I have to say, Craig, you must have did something with this internet, some way.
It's my electric personality. It's just like
yes. Listen, Craig, you were my favorite. You're one of my favorite characters now, so you shouldn't be doing this now. I was rooting for you and Sierra.
All right, Matt. Well, listen, I've actually got to go.
But yeah, you work with a lot of famous.
No, I do. I have to go, unfortunately. But I wanted to thank you for having me on the show. and I will come back anytime and talk to you.
No problem. Sure thing. I will send you an email again, contact with you sometime maybe next month or in September, and we can do another hour of this because we, still got more.
You got it. You got it. All right. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Scott.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Scott. Okay, guys. Thanks again. Sorry for the bad internet connection. I'm going to try maybe do it on my phone next time. But listen, thanks again for tuning in for PE Slick Podcast and tune in with Scott Bryce. I'm going to have him come back between next month and September to talk a little more about his time on As the World Turns and other primetime shows that he's done. And stay tuned this Thursday. I'm having Sony Sandra, who was Lucy Cooper on Guiding Light. She's going to come by. And I believe this is going to be one of her first few interviews since leaving Guiding Light. So thank you again. And until next time, y'all have a good night now. Goodbye.